Hello, hello, folks. Alex with TV Fortitude here, and today we're going to be talking about a found footage movie from 2013 called As Above, So Below. This one is set in the Paris Catacombs, and they are looking for the Philosopher's Stone, and they end up finding themselves traveling through the gates of hell. I guess even more than the gates of hell, traveling through hell itself, conceptually. It's a very trippy movie. Hell in this movie is defined by your worst fears, or, yeah, I guess your worst fears. And we have two groups of characters come together. We have our main group, which is our cameraman, the girl who's leading it, and her friend. The friend doesn't really want to come along until the catacombs, but they end up being they're about to be arrested as they're going in, so then he ends up joining them inside. And then you have this other group who ends up leading them through the catacombs, so to speak, because they're from Paris. You have I can barely remember any of these characters' names except Papillon because of his spray paint thing on the walls. Pap. It's an interesting movie. As far as found footage movies go, I like it a lot. There's a lot of interesting visuals at the end, and it's got that major claustrophobia feel, and it's a bit like it's a major adventure movie at the same time because they have to continually go deeper and deeper, and it's like there's no way back. Multiple times their way back is taken out, so then they have to keep going forward. And let's get into some of the stuff I really like about this movie. I really like the characters, they're pretty solid. I like Papillon. I like our cameraman guy. I like his name is Zed, I think. And then you have Susie. Susie, she's pretty solid. She doesn't get that much to do, honestly. She's kind of like a bit of a sidekick to Papillon and Zed. Even just Papillon. Papillon's clearly the leader. And then you have our main girl. I don't remember her name at all, but she's very fascinating. As far as a leader character and somebody who's continually pushing them deeper and is making the strong group lead decisions, I think she's very solid. Her sidekick guy, so to speak, he's pretty awesome. I mean, he's got a very interesting kind of character setup because he's so reluctant to go in, but then once they're in there, he's like full force. I guess that makes sense with his situation with his brother when he was young because he's been experienced in caves since he was young, but he's also really traumatized and doesn't want to go back into the caves. Guess that makes a lot of sense. Then the cameraman guy, I liked him a lot. He was clearly the most inexperienced, very willing to go in there, and very excitable. But he had a lot of good character development throughout it. At the beginning, he's just kind of a cameraman, and he starts to become a very likable character to be rooting for as the film goes on. So I was a big fan of him. Then you have Latoupe. He was interesting to say the least. I'm not exactly sure how I feel about his character. It was strong for what it was in a way, but they just start following him through the corridors, and it's kind of like, uh, all right. I mean, I guess it makes sense because it's like he's been down here. He would know better than you. You've known this guy for a long time, so you're gonna naturally trust him. But he's got that a weird look in his eye, man. Like I don't know. I would be nervous to trust him. He looks like he's lost his mind a bit. And yeah, as far as when they go deeper and deeper and end up in the gates of hell, the moments where it was showing what each of the characters were afraid of and whether or not they faced the fears and it allowed them to survive or they ran from the fears and they died. I thought that was really fascinating. I would have loved to see what some of the other characters' fears were or their, hang-ups, their traumas, but we didn't get to see that sadly. And some of the moments with those characters and their traumas were very basic. Honestly, Papillons was the only one that was big. You had Zed, who didn't accept the child that he had, and I think we saw a child in there at one point. You had our main girl who her father committed suicide and she didn't answer the phone. I did like the phone ringing and then her hearing her dad talking to her over the phone. That was really trippy, honestly. I like when I get so scared in some of these movies, I could just feel like tears coming down my face. Not even like of sadness, just of like, oh. And I thought that was really effective. That phone call was really big. Also, another one. This isn't one of the trauma things, but when they're first getting in there, and then there's like the whole like singing, chanting group where there's like naked women standing with all the candles and the symbols on the ground. Then there's the woman that they saw outside the nightclub staring at them, and then she just turns. Oh my god, that got me good. This movie's got some really good scares, even if a lot of them aren't directly threatening, let's say, or don't make an impact on the plot as a major threat. They feel threatening and they could be threatening. So it's not just some weak jump scares. This movie is very effectively claustrophobic at certain points, and there's certain things. Now to talk about some things I don't like. There's certain things that are just kind of weird, honestly. Um, you have the cover of the movie, when she's like covered in blood and all that. I didn't get that. Was it the thing where she had to swim through water getting in and then to get back out? It was blood because what happened is she took the Philosopher's Stone and then she realized she needed to put it back to really get the power because now they're in hell. When they were not in hell, she was able to use the stone and its power, but in hell, she had to go put it back and then she became the power, which I thought was really cool. I thought that was really cool. Her wiping off the thing and seeing herself in the reflection. Very, very cool. But I didn't understand the whole river of blood thing and her being grabbed by the hands. Is that the thing that they swam through to get in? Maybe. Um, that was interesting, but I was a bit confused on it. Um, it does feel like a bit of an abrupt ending. I really like this movie. It's a very strong movie. It's very powerful, and the ending is very earned. So I don't want to say it's not earned, and the ending is phenomenal. I absolutely love the ending, but I wouldn't have minded a bit more to the movie. I would not have minded a bit more to this movie. Um, the character deaths, they're strong, a couple of them, but they're also just I don't know. You have Latope who disappears on two occasions. I guess that's his death. When the thing collapses. Then you have Susie who's like attacked to death by Latope. Then you have what's his name? Greg, the cameraman. He like falls all the way down this pit after being jump scared by this creature. That was a good one. I mean, that was strong. And then you had what's his name? Papillon, who's like sucked into the car. That was a really cool one. Those effects were really strong. Yeah, so the deaths they're not they're not bad. They're not bad. Um, there's not many deaths or anything I can think of by any of the actual creatures. So yeah, but we know they can hurt you because the one dude was bit on the neck by it and then was saved later. I thought that was an interesting one. I mean, I don't know. That bite on the neck looked pretty intense. Like when I first saw it, I was like, "Oh, he's dead right away." But he survives for a long time. I mean, I'm not saying that's not realistic, but it's not what I expected, and it felt a little bit like, "Oh, if this character wasn't being used for this purpose, he would probably be dead based on what they had already set up in the story. But I don't know if that's fair because the other character deaths are a lot more intense. I mean, the Susie chick, I was like, maybe she could have survived, but I don't know. I mean, that was a pretty aggressive head bashing. So yeah, I guess that's not too much of a gripe. I did really like that you had all of these different creatures. I really like the one that came out of the wall, the dude sitting in the chair, the random jump scare that got Greg, that girl. You had the baby. Again, I mentioned the weird cult group of naked women with the candles. Man, that's one that I won't forget from this movie. That is a golden one. Then you have the hands trying to grab our main girl, and she goes through the river of blood. I thought all these different creatures were really cool. The characters were strong enough to latch onto, particularly our two main protagonists. I thought Papillon was really strong. I thought Zed was really good. He wasn't used a ton in the movie, but I thought he was really strong. And what's his name? The cameraman, I think, Greg. They were all really strong. Most of the characters I liked a lot. Susie felt pretty underused. Lataupe was a weird character. I like him, but I don't know. I mean, it almost feels like something kind of unfinished by the movie, but I feel like that's intentional. I wonder if he was actually alive. Doesn't seem like he was. He became one with the cave, and then they used the fact that he was a mole that could go around from place to place, and now he's just a spirit doing that. I guess that's the best I can gather from it. And then you have the one guy when they're first going in and they're going with the tour guide, and he's like, look for Papillon. And then they look back and he disappears. I would have loved something with Papillon coming up like that was Lataupe or something. You know, I would have thought it was cool if that was someone they knew that they never saw again because they turn back and he's just disappeared. And so I'm wondering what that had anything to do with to connect. And I thought that would have been something cool to connect. That would have been another big moment for me to be shocked at. But I mean, it's still cool for what it is. I like this movie a lot. I like that there's a lot of things where they go through one tunnel and then the entrance is blocked off, or they're in the same place that they went through to start with, or they're in the same place they went through to start with and it's flipped again, or they're forced to go through a way that they're completely convinced that they cannot go through, like the way that Lataupe went through and never came back. Very fascinating, all those things to me. And another thing, they saw Lataupe and they didn't immediately think, how is this man alive? Didn't he go missing months ago? What? So he's got to be dead. He's got to be a spirit. I mean, I don't see why that didn't come to any of their minds quickly. But honestly, I really like this movie overall. I think it's one of my favorite found footage movies. I think it's extremely effective at being claustrophobic and adventurous, and you want to continually see what's happening next. It has strong characters to latch onto. It uses the found footage aspect effectively without it being one of those movies that is so hard to watch because it's found footage, and it does an effective job of covering things that could realistically be done by somebody else looking at it. There's a couple of things where it's like, why would that character be looking that direction at this moment? But, you know, I mean, the cameraman is the cameraman, and he looks around a lot, all right? I mean, I'm willing to let that one slide. So I highly recommend this movie. I definitely would recommend checking it out if you have not. I kind of spoiled a decent amount of things in here, but I think it's still a great watch. Did not spoil the ending, which is the most powerful part by far. And a lot of the things I described in the film are still going to be striking likely when they happen, even though you somewhat know what's going on. I'm trying to think what to rate this movie. I'll give it a solid 9.5 out of 10. Highly recommend it. I would love to see more scary movies based in the Paris catacombs. Honestly, right after I get off this, I'm going to go look up more movies that take place in the Paris catacombs. Highly recommend this one. Any final thoughts? Yeah, I mean, honestly, just this is a phenomenal found footage movie. If you like the found footage genre, if you like claustrophobic movies, if you like, underground mining movies or caving movies, or honestly, I don't know if there's a genre, but Paris Catacombs movie, this is awesome. This movie is so cool. The characters really carry it, as well as the way that they effectively use the scares throughout. And there's jump scares, but they actually feel like legitimate threats. A lot of jump scares, I hate them because it's just not a legitimate threat. Like, oh, someone backs up into somebody and I hate those. I hate those loud sound effect nonsense. This movie, the threats feel real. The jump scares are earned. All right, that's it, folks. As Above, So Below, found footage movie set in the Paris catacombs from 2013. 9.5. This is Alex with TV Fortitude, signing off.